Hello everyone. This is an instructional video on how to attach your motor control system to your robot and how to calibrate your controller and receiver. So this will be a two-part show. So if you want to get to the second part, you just have to fast forward to the next location. When we get to that location, what I'll do is I'll be zooming down the camera so that you could see just the controller and the receiver. So if you're trying to fast forward to that section, it's pretty easy to figure that one out. Some of the components that we're going to need today is obviously our robot, which has the chassis built. And this is a robot that has treaded system, so it's a treaded wheel system. You can just use regular wheels if you'd like, but I just happen to have the treaded ones here. Now I've already set up areas where I could attach my switch to. I've already added my motors to the tread system, and then the wires to connect to my motors. Some of you may not have that yet. We'll also need a switch. This is the switch assembly. We're going to need input wires for our motor control system, a battery, so that we can get this thing to run. So this is going to be fairly easy. What we want to do is we want to identify the best place to be putting our systems. Now I've already added screws in the 4 locations where I know I want my screws to go through. Now the reason I've done that is because it's going to be pretty difficult in some areas to attach these screws because there's other components of the robot in there. Now hopefully they won't all fall out. Some of them have. So let's hope that I can get them back in there. But to save us some trouble here today, what I'm just going to do is I'll probably just set up 2 of these screws. This is not a difficult system, but sometimes it can be a little bit tedious in that when you have so many of these components all set up, then it takes a lot more time to put screws and stuff in, especially if you want to get them into the tight spaces like I have here. Now the 2 screws I'll do today will be just these 2, and I'm going to be using a kep nut, which will go on the bottom of the screw. And if I try to get it close, you should be able to see there's like a little, what looks like a star. That's actually a washer on there. And that will lock in the screw for me when I'm tightening everything up. So we just got to find the screw underneath. And once we find it, we can turn it with our hex head screwdriver. And in normal situations, I would put all 4 screws on, but in just today's, to save some time in our video, I'm not going to put all 4 screws on. I'm just going to put 2 and get the motor control system set up so that we can get to the good stuff. All right, so this will be set up for today. And now I want to get my switch assembly set up. Now my switch assembly has wires that come out of it. So if, let's say, you wanted to put it straight up and down, the wires might get in the way or hit the base. You could try to come up with another way of doing it like I have, where I have the space on the bottom and then the wire assembly can go down there. But then it hits the ground a lot, and you don't want to, I don't know, if you're going over something, you don't want anything really hitting these wires. So for me, I like to set them up on the side, but again, it's completely up to you guys. How you want to do it is totally fine with me, as long as it is set up and it's secure so that the wire assembly can't just go anywhere it wants to go. Now I'm just going to use a couple screws and a couple of kep nuts to get this on there. If I had more time in the demonstration, I would use all 4 screws to get it on there so that it doesn't come off. 1 screw could loosen up and then the assembly falls off, and you don't want that to happen. 2 screws, not as likely to both falls off, but still pretty likely. And 3 screws is, more than likely to stay on, and you'll be fine. And I just would use 4 screws to be completely sure. So now I have my switch assembly set up. Turning it on makes a little red light here. Turning it off, you're good. And now I can start plugging things in. And it's really easy to plug things in. It's like a USB. These will go into the ports. Just make sure that you're reading carefully. On the motor control system, it says that these are considered motor 1 and motor 2. Doesn't really matter which one of these wires that connect to the motors underneath. And in case you can't see, there are the motors underneath, right there, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the components into the motor control system. And I also don't want to make wires cross here if I can help it. And we always want to do red to red, black to black, and just basically plug and play. Pretty simple. Those are now connected. And this, because it's our switch assembly, and this spot right here, this little clip, will actually clip into our battery eventually. That is our 12-volt battery, and it says right here on the motor control system 12 volt. So for these plugins, I'm going to actually just plug it into one of those two. Again, red to red, black to black. And I will increase the zoom so that you guys can see exactly what's happening down here. And just to give you a better sight of it, I've plugged in everything, red to red, black to black. These are my two motor assemblies. And this is my switch assembly. So now that I have that, I need two input wires to go in here. Now those input wires are set up white, red, and black. And you want the black to go towards the inside of the motor control unit. And you're going to need two of these wires, both black side going inward. And there we go. Everything is set up correctly. Now, I'm not a big fan of all these wires. I have a twist tie that I like to use, but you could use Velcro and whatever you want. So I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. And you will see how we just set all of this up. So here we go. I'll just move out these wires. And for my motor wires, which happen to be the wires that are very long, and so they get in the way a lot, I will tie them up and use a twist tie to twist them together. I would suggest you using Velcro just because I have a lot of it, but Velcro will actually do a good job here too. Once I have it all set up, I can just tuck it in eventually, but that keeps it out of the way, which is really what I want. Now I can put my battery in, and eventually I want to create a battery holder for this, and I will zoom out even more so that we can get a better look here. So when I'm putting the battery in, there's actual connections that we can put on these batteries. It will not fit into my system. I do not want to leave the battery floating around in there. So I will eventually create a system that keeps the batteries from falling around or floating around in there. To connect the two, I got a clip on this side, and I have a little hook on that side, and the two will go together and clip in together. And now that they're together, if I hit the power button, we should see some power happening here. And we've got lights going and blue lights going. It's really nice. All right, so we're all set. That means I'm ready to go. And all I need to do now is to calibrate my receiver and controller. So I'm going to just slide this over, and here's my receiver. Here's my controller. And this is the portion of the video where we're going to be calibrating these two components so that they actually talk to each other. In order for me to do that, I need to actually plug things into here. Now, it might be too blurred on your screen, but believe it or not, there are channels here, and it basically says channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the last one is a battery, which we're not going to use for today's lesson. But we are going to use at least two of the channels here. So I'm going to take those first two input channels, which input wires, which were in the motor unit, and I'm going to plug them into one of these channels. Well, the first thing we should say is, unlike the motor controller system where I had the black wires going on the inside, in this case, when it comes to the receiver, we want the white wire going into the inside. So it should go white, red, black on the receiver. I will plug one of them into number 1. I will plug one of them into number 3. And we have another video that shows those channels, and we will set it up for you, and I will show you guys where that video is in class so you can find it. But it is probably in our Schoology under important videos. But anyway, so here we go. We got our 2 wires set up, 1 and 3. And we have the white wires on one side, the black wires on the other side. And it looks like we're ready to go. When I turn the power on, we will see a blinking light. Right here, there's a red light that blinks. On the opposite side of this receiver, there's actually a little button there. And what we want to do is we want to press and hold that button in until the red light flashes rapidly. So I'm going to push that in, and when the red light is flashing rapidly, I can then pair it. So right now, if you look, you see how it's really blinking? Well, I'll turn on my remote at this point, and then there's a button here that says connect. So I will press then hold that button. And when it beeps, I release, and my robot is alive. So what was happening here is that one of the trim was all the way, and when you push the trim and move the trim, it actually moves the robot. So in this case, the robot was thinking that I was already turning one of these controllers to make it move. As you can see, we can make the robot move forward, we can make it move left and right and backward. So it really comes out really nice. Now the last thing that we want to do, and before I do that, I want to turn off my remote and the power, is I want to plug in the receiver. So I don't want my receiver just chilling out there in the world. So I need a spot for it. And what I like to do is I like to usually keep it centrally located. So I'll put two screws in here where the receiver is. You could put it towards the front or back, whichever you decide is the front and back, depending on your attachment. So for one attachment, we could be building it off of here. You can just take your receiver and bring it to here. It's only 2 screws. And then for another attachment, if we're on this side of the robot, we could bring the receiver here. Now, the reason we would bring the receiver to those locations is eventually we're going to have wires that go into the receiver. And those wires that go into those receiver will control some of the other components that are on those attachments. Like for golf, it'll control the thing that opens and closes it and lifts it up and down. So we just got to make sure that this receiver is closer to the side of the attachment. And that is it. So this concludes the tutorial on how to attach our electrical systems, our batteries, and to calibrate the remote control to the receiver. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or ask. Thank you.